get some instant analysis from our friend, fast money friend, Gene Munster. He's the managing partner at Deepwater Asset Management. Gene, great to have you with us. As was pointed out by the desk, you know, the reaction's not that great considering we went in with a decline of 4%. So what do you make of the earnings and the guidance? Because if it were really that good, shouldn't we at least make up the losses from today's session?
We should, Melissa, and I think that eventually investors will give them credit. This was a solid quarter. I want to put a couple points into perspective. Is that DAUs, the daily active users, grew 5.4%. That's the fourth consecutive quarter of acceleration, albeit it goes from 3.5% to 4%, 4.5%, 5%. But accelerating, that's a 2 billion number, daily active users. That means that 1 out of every 4 people in the world visit a Meta property daily. And Zuckerberg kicked off the call. The first data point that he gave was that the number of people that visit an app monthly was 3.9 billion. My last check, there's about 7.5 billion people in the world. That means that more than half the people in the world. That's the, I think, one of the most important overlooked points to this quarter is that means that the machine, this addictive machine that they have, is intact. And as the second piece related to just the health of the ad business, that they slightly exceeded the numbers. They raised revenue, by my math, by about 3% for the December quarter and kept expenses unchanged, which gets to the third point, which is margins. Margins are 40% operating margins. That's the best since June of 2021. And if you're curious, the operating margin for full year 2019 pre-pandemic, before they got that big boost in 21, was 33%. So they're measurably higher. The question comes up, why own Meta? Deepwater, we do own Meta. The reason to own it is they have a lock in terms of reach that no other advertiser can get. We talked about how many people use it. And separately, they're doing it in a more profitable way than they did 3 years ago. And I think that is, those are positives. Then I think you put the final filter on top of this, which is valuation. I think it lines up attractive. Everything wasn't perfect. We can talk about Reality Labs. That's still a sore point for me. But that's how I see the quarter in aggregate.
So to oversimplify what you just said, Gene, is it about growth or is it about efficiency? Why does someone own the stock?
You own it for growth. And ultimately, the efficiency piece is going to top out. I think that margins are going to go from 40% in September to probably 42%. But eventually, they're just going to kind of keep the margins at that level. It has to come to growth. Where are you going to get the growth from? I do believe that AI is going to make some of these content tools more easy to build content. I believe in the creator economy. Instagram is one manifestation of that, a big beneficiary of that. And separately, I think that this placeholder that they have related to the metaverse or spatial computing, I wish they wouldn't spend $15 billion. That is absolutely absurd that they're spending that kind of money on it. But Tim, to answer your question, it's about growth. But Melissa, if I can get 10 more seconds, I would love just to give you my thoughts on Reality Lab, because that is, I think, the one negative here.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to go fast here. As I mentioned, they've increased spending. It's going to be $15 billion, kind of a spend annually on that. Annually, Apple spends $30 billion in total on their R&D. I mean, this just doesn't make sense. I think there's a place for the metaverse. I think spatial computing with Apple is going to be a hit, but that number should be more like $5 billion a year, not $15 billion.
Hey, Gene, so, you know, we hear a lot about Bard. We hear a lot about ChatGPT-4. Talk to us a little bit about Llama. And so when you look at a company like Meta, which valued not really anywhere near what Microsoft is, Mel just played the would you rather on some of us here, but this is stock expected to grow earnings next year 20% plus, sales growth of double digits, maybe 12% or something like that. You just talked about the operating margins. What's built in for their open source large language model, Llama, which I think you believe that they're going to be able to integrate across a lot of these platforms that reaches nearly 4 billion people at least once a month?
Yeah, it's kind of the substance. It's the fabric that they're going to build products on. Just a few minutes I was on with the call. Zuckerberg, his first comments were about Reality Labs, and his second comment was about AI and getting those into all the products. And they need Llama to do that. They're not going to, based on what they've told us so far, they're not going to charge, they're not going to have an outright business around Llama. And so it's not going to be a direct revenue contributor. But to your point is that that kind of generative AI that can be powered by Llama is going to make creating content more effective. And I think they can use less on the generative side, but I think they can use AI to build better advertising tools Remember, Apple ripped the ball out of Meta's hands when they had those changes to privacy. It was the right thing for Apple to do. It left Meta in a very tough spot. That created a headwind a couple years ago, and they can dig their way out of that by using AI to do better ad attribution, and that's part of the whole Llama story.